welcome back to the Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cobb. I want to thank you for joining us and especially returning to us on the podcast. Today we're going to have our 45th episode of the podcast here with head coach, Flower Mound Marcus High School, Coach Jeff Sherman. Sherman, as most some like to call him, is like I said, the head coach there at Marcus. He's also the 15U USA Baseball 15U National Hitting Coach. Since 2013, Coach Sherman has had an overall record at Marcus as 198 and 46. 2014, 2018, they're Region Finalist, District Coach of the Year, both of those years, 6A District Coach of the Year. He set records for most win in the season at Marcus multiple times. They've been top 5 in the state, top 5 in the country. They've 2015, that's when they were top 5 in the country. But this guy is a wealth of knowledge, extremely willing to share, grow the game, and was fortunate to get to know him through some other great coaches that have been on the podcast, like Jeremy Sheetinger, Butch Chafin, and was able to, talk to Sherman, get him on the podcast, and we were able to talk about the great things he does in his program. You'll hear today about his great analogies that he used, and like I mentioned to Sherman, he reminded me of Tyler Gillum that was on the show, and just how great communicators use analogies, and you hear it throughout of the show, and how and all that's for is to give people a better understanding of what's going on and to communicate it more effectively, and he does that throughout it. Use of analogies, and you'll hear the zoo and the jungle. That's his. He's been on the national podcast about the zoo and the jungle, which is taking things from in the practice setting and putting it into the game situation where we need to be able to perform in the game, which is the jungle. They got to be able to live and survive in the jungle. And what we do in the zoo, how is it preparing him for that? So he gets into all those things, and we talk about culture. His purpose is why, and really the kids in finding their players' whys, their purposes. So. But Sherman's just a guy always willing to share, grow the game, as a man of faith, strong family, and was really pleased and privileged to have him on the show, and really hoping that this provides a lot of value to the listeners. And, we got into some things and just how he even questions his players and to get them to have more ownership of their ability and to become problem solvers. Because, again, when it comes to the jungle, when it comes to real life, when it comes into the game, they need to be able to solve their problems. So, without further ado, we'll get more into that, and you'll hear those conversations coming. But Coach Jeff Sherman, Marcus High School, absolute dude. Can't thank him enough. Hope you guys enjoy it. So, here he is. Head coach at Marcus High School, Jeff Sherman.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's been great. I mean, yeah, just keep learning, keep getting better, man. I think that's what I'm trying to do. And, I think as high school coaches, I think the thing that we miss a lot is that we have a lab right in front of us. We have a lab for us to continue to process, eliminate, create, all those things, to make ourselves better as a better coach and better teacher and a better motivator, better communicator, all those things, daily. I think we can always, problem solve daily and look back at what we can and can't do, So.
Yeah, so like you mentioned earlier about you guys are getting ready to start up Friday and all, so if there's one thing that I guess in the past 3 months, 2 months, or this off season that you've taken away, what's one thing that you're maybe doing a little differently, or something you've learned that you just have to implement?
Yeah, I think that the best thing that we have done is that I think we do in our culture at Marcus is we learn how to, one, I think, compete, play the game at a high level. And we stop play, when we get into that jungle and try to teach. Like every single day I try to, I start practice with a mental thought, and that mental thought could be like, hey, when we turn two, how we come across the bag, just a mental thought of how the game is supposed to be played. And then we find something in practice within that. I think that something we do really well is like how that can win or lose a game. If it's something that was good or bad, like for example, today we didn't break down at the end of the bag, at first base. And we had an overthrow, and a guy tries to turn and goes to second base, and he gets thrown out at second base because the catcher's backing up there. And we talk about, just, how, like little things matter, and stuff like that. And so we really harp on, just the little things within the games and the nuances of the game to create the big picture, and doing that as fast as we possibly can, so that they can play under that pressure within the game at a high level.
So the zoo and the jungle, you're trying to create the most chaotic zoo that you can, so that way the jungle seems natural.
Yeah. And so how we, the things that I've kind of, learned over time is when you get into the, whatever you want to call it, the jungle or the game or whatever it is that is like legit competition.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are trying to win the game. And how do we get kids in our stage right now, like to win the game? And what matters? And you have to like really talk to them, and you have to be almost that lawyer that knows all the science, or that doctor that knows all that science and knows everything about the game, and like compress it as hard as we can, and then like spit it out as like easy and as simplistic for them to understand. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is if they understand and how they understand it. We try to create this like chaotic offense. Like we want to be you have no idea what we're going to do. We might steal home,
Mm-hmm.
We might squeeze, we might be fake bunting. We might be bunting, we don't know. We might be fake stealing. We might be doing a first and third. You have no idea what we're doing. We want to create that. Like we believe a win is if a guy has to throw it on the run, or he has to throw it quick. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
a win for us. If it's a bunt, or if it's a ball and he has to go ball in dirt and he has to throw it quick, all those things, we want to create that win. On defense, we want to do the complete opposite. Like we want to, I try to describe it to our guys, to winning at it is like legitimately slow down, take a breath, figure it out, do not react, see, analyze, and move. If it's a first and third, they want to do something like, what are we trying to do here? How are we trying to do it? Again, the pitcher has the ball. It should be defense. Like, hey, if we need a pick here to slow the game down, we're not trying to pick him off, but we're trying to get that batter to deceive him. So again, like those are the things that we try to do within a practice setting right off the bat, to understand how, if you get kicked in the face real quick, or vice versa, how to put that pressure on, we call the dragon, the best pitcher out there, and how do we get him, and how do we break his chain throughout the game? And so anyways, I know that's a lot, but that's the jungle. Like that's the atmosphere that we want to create in a daily basis. And at the same time, figure out, and this is where the coaching thing comes in. This is where we come in as coaches, this is where the great coaches figure this out. And they're very, very, very good at it. They figure out when they cannot succeed at the highest level. We bring them to the zoo. We bring them down. We nurture them. We figure that out. And we look at this snow globe on top of them and figure out the piece of that puzzle to make them the best player they can. So we slow it down for them, and we bring them up and saying, hey, this is where we're not efficient. These are the things that we have to move. Or for our sport, it's all about movement and how we move. We are rotational athletes. Everything we do on our field is either a lateral or rotational. And if we understand rotation, like, we have to understand that it comes with like balance, center, midline, and then we have to move from the middle. and that's all complexity, and we can get into that if we need to, but like understanding how we move is we start, we stop, we rotate, right? I mean, it's as simplistic as that. And how we do that and how we do that efficiently is what we want to create. How easy can we strike a baseball? How easy can we throw a baseball and create force at release or force at contact? How do we create that punch? We call it ball striking. We want to think of everything as a strike, like taekwondo, or if it's jujitsu, or if it's boxing. Like, how do we strike, and have all the force and all the energy in that barrel or at release of a pitch? And how easy can we do that? And we try to, at the same time, in that jungle piece, when they aren't succeeding, or in that zoo piece, when they aren't succeeding in that jungle, we try to throw film at it. And my number one question I say to it is I can't even pronounce it, is like, look at it like you have never played the game before. Think of your grandmother, or someone that that has never seen this. And does that look easy? Does that look like you rotate efficiently? And then they'll probably say, well, no, and stuff like that. I was like, don't look at it from a point of like, oh, I broke my hands, or I did this, I did that. I mean, we can break that down but everybody's a different mover, just like everybody's a different squatter, just like everybody's a different runner. And so we rotate all differently. And how to find that is I think is the most efficient. And so again, I just word vomited there, and I apologize, but I think that's it. That's where great coaches come from. I truly believe that they're great learners, but they understand how to go from the zoo and then speak to this person. I think we fall into a trap in baseball. Is well, he doesn't understand mentally. Well, yeah, or he doesn't have mental focus, or whatever it is, or he doesn't have confidence. Well, my thing back to whoever that is yes, there's that whole side to it. But having confidence is literally like buying into your why, or why you're doing what you're doing. And if they don't have that, what's the point of them even being there? But when they understand their why, and they understand, that they want to be an efficient mover, that they want to be a starter on the varsity team, that they want to be a college athlete, they're going to do whatever it takes, and they're going to problem solve, and they're going to try to blend that, jungle to that zoo. And they're going to understand what greatness really looks like if the coach can communicate that as efficiently as possible. And again, that comes back to there's where the great coaches come from. And that's what I thrive and try to, and I fail at daily and analyze and try to move through. But anyways, those are I believe that's where the great coaches can really, especially in this game of baseball, can really move those players. Because at the end of the day, let's think about it. It takes a split second for you to move and hit a baseball. It takes you a split second to move. You don't have thought process of confidence at all in that movement, right? It's all that pre going into it. I'm about to strike a baseball. I'm about to hit the baseball. I believe he's going to throw an outer half, all those kind of things. But at the moment, they're not thinking anything. And so it comes back to is where confidence comes from is if they can officially see and do ball striking, or at release point out front, they see the efficiency of that. Hey, I'm getting better. I'm seeing the numbers thrive. I'm seeing swing and misses, or I'm hitting balls now in the gap, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that was a ton, and you guys are doing so. I guess one thing that comes to my mind is thinking about that is taking the zoo in the jungle. So typically, will you try to speed a guy up first and foremost just to see what the efficiencies are? Or are you going to kind of build the zoo up to the jungle? Or will you just throw them in there to kind of see what we need? And then go, like you said, now go back to the zoo, go back to the practice setting, kind of build him up to be ready?
I believe both work. However, I do the opposite. And this might be my dyslexia and a little bit into it. But I will say this. It's a great question, because I do the opposite, where I don't want to give them any information. throw them out there, let them fail, explain it, because I think that's where the fruit is. I think that's where the gold is. I think that's where their mind starts to turn. Because my job now, I want to get my guys, I really do. I want to get my guys to be the best problem solvers. And when they can't win, I want to see how they react to it. Because I think that's the only way. I mean, that's what the U.S. military does. That's what the great performers. I mean, like Saban does 1-versus-1 like 2 days before the national championship game. Like they are like, no, we're going to go and feel like, no, they're going the best, and we're challenging it right now. And when you mess up against the fast and how fast you play, that's where like you have their attention. Like, how do I fix this? What do I need to do? And then that's where the questioning starts coming in. Well, how did you feel during that? What did you think you did? Where do you think you need to move to? How do you think you need to move better, or whatever it may be? And so I liked every single practice. We first and foremost, like before we start every practice, we do chalk talk.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Every single day. It's something that they're learning that we want to apply. Right after that, we go right into the jungle. Like they jog, they do all their agilities, they do all these kind of things. And then we go right now, it's game mode. And it might be a first and third. It might be a live scrimmage. It might be whatever it is. But we are playing as fast as you can and as quick as we can. And everything is live. I'm given a sign. Defense is given a sign. Everything's on. And from that, you get every single thing you could possibly think of. Like you might hit a double off the wall. Now you're working the cut relay stuff, like verbal communication. You could be working. We could be like, okay, we're going to focus on bunting, because we really struggled with that a couple of weeks ago. Like boom, 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 boom. We're working on bunting and working on throwing, from a defensive side of things. There's so many different things. We work on a look system from a pitcher, and we have a pitching machine and all those kind of things of like how we pick and how we throw. So again, like I want to throw it out there and then we teach it. And so then
you're saying then we break it down. Then we break it down and
so
get kind of blocked.
So how I do it is it's interesting because how I do it is like, so today, let's use that example. So today we're in the jungle and we get after it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And all of our failures that we do in that game, which would be a lot, like, and it could be like only 25 minutes. We film that part every day. I pick apart all that the very next day in our chalk talk. We are picking that apart, like why we weren't successful and how we move and how we do that. So therefore, the next day when we go into the jungle or when we go into the zoo, all right, after we're in the jungle, we go over the day before's, struggles or whatever it is. If the shortstop wasn't, catching the backhand correct, or if it was a first and third, or if it was like we got in a rundown or whatever it may be, we're going to work on that we call it individual time, whatever you want to call it, zoo time, however you want to call it, where you basically like are nurturing, helping, guiding, building those guys back up to, like, hey, here's how you play fast. I just never found when I was an athlete or anywhere else where when I went to a practice and I got 500 ground balls or I got 500 swings, I never felt like I got better. I never really but when I put my mentality into every single play at the very beginning and I saw the failure, I feel like I learned more, and I learned more about myself of where I'm not the greatest at what I do and how do I fix that? Like that's my problem solving right there. Mm-hmm. And that's where I feel like that's why I want to speed them up at the very beginning and go hard on those things. And I can manipulate that jungle at any way I want to, how fast, and the complexity could be so different every single day. You could go slower, you can go faster, because that both sides play mind games, when you go slower, when you go faster, when you go curveball machine.
Control the pace. Sure.
Yeah, you control the pace, you control the thinking, you control the mentality of like how you want it, and then you keep reinforcing what you want.
I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, that's honestly like when you start saying like I kind of sense that that's what you kind of hit them right in the face right away with practice. Like, because typically, you heard the whole, we do base running at the beginning because that's when they're most focused and we have all the attention, blah, blah, blah. But you're like, well, I'm going to play right away. Like, we're going to go ahead and go game like and go jungle right away. And so then we're going to base all our teaching off of that.
Yes. And, within that, I think this too, you got to remember, we play a different game. Like high school baseball plays a different game. It's the same game. Like you got to catch, you got to throw, you got to hit. All those things are the same. Like, however, you're only playing 21 outs. Like that's different. In our league, I mean, we have, dragons everywhere. I mean, like we got a lot of Division I pitchers that we're going to face. We got a lot of really good offensive players and defensive players with a lot of speed. We're at 6A, which has up to like from 3 to 4 to 5,000 kids in a school, and in very high competitive area. That those 21 outs are like so gold, and so you can't take 3 innings to all of a sudden boom get in there. So when you create the mentality at that very first day, like you're going in and you're getting ready and you got to get focused. If not, coach is going to kick you out of practice really quick because you ain't focused and you're never getting to that zoo. Then like that's showing you right now, like you got to get that lead, because that lead is so important in our game, in a high school baseball game. We don't have a thing called relief pitching. It's the next best guy.
It's true.
We don't say, hey, you're the relief guy. No. Hey, you're our number 3 or number 4. So, hey, man, like if our number 1 and number 2 are going in a midweek day, like the 3 and 4 are going, that ends up being, I guess we call a relief guy. If that guy gets in trouble, you're pitching because you're my next best guy.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So just controlling that and understanding is so important. It is. I mean, like, that's what we want to try to think. And I just think that we play it. It's not that we play at a different level. There's nothing of that. But I don't think we ever get surprised. We get in first and third. It's like, okay, we've been here before. Like, if we want to get the guy out at home, like we've been there. We've trained this multiple times.
No,
stuff like that.
It's great. I think, and it's something I think, because when you get out and you're younger and you have all the drills and you have all those things, but yeah, when it gets down to, they got to perform in the game. And I remember you saying this a couple months ago, where they need to perform out there, because you were in the cage. They need to perform out there, and so it's almost like that, even in the sense of when we're playing a game. It's like I think it's almost as baseball coaches, we segment it so much and we don't play the game as much because it does take time and you have to manipulate a little bit in practice because you only have so much time. But that's where, like you said, that's where the fruit is, where we got to get them more game situations, and and then we'll base the zoo-based practice off of those failures and kind of things we don't do well in the game.
Absolutely. I mean, you gotta address those, and then always rehearse those things. Here's another little nugget that I felt like was very compelling to me when I started like just thinking about it. This is one. One is we do this thing where a negative swing or a negative throw or a negative field, it's okay, just get another one. There's no accountability to it.
Yeah.
So we're in the cage, and in our sport, and especially up north and even in Texas, like where we're at, I mean, it gets cold and stuff like that. But like my guys, like they love to hit. Like they literally generally love to go hit. But I don't think they understand how to hit. I don't think our culture does, because they want to get that perfect swing. They want to get that swing where they can put on Twitter where it says they hit a home run, or they want to get that like, whatever it may be, right? They just want to feel good. And like you're playing the worst sport in the world to feel good.
Yes. I
mean, you're going to – I mean, it's like almost like golf. Like you might feel good maybe once out of 18 holes, and that might be the same thing. Like the goal is to win. And how to do that is my thing when we always are in the zoo or in the cages is how – like my thing was like how to make my guys to understand that every swing matters. Because you only get 5 swings maybe in an at-bat. So 21 outs, again, you're guaranteed probably 3 at-bats, but like buddy, like you might not, get maybe 3 or 4 swings. Hopefully you only get 3, or, if you get four bats, you get 4 bats, and some of you might get 0, you might be bunting, because that's part of our game big time. And the thing that I've like come to this conclusion on is like, we are not very intent in our swings. Like we don't know how to do that. Now, I've been fortunate enough to be around DBU and had players go to Dallas Baptist University and being around Dan Hefner a lot. And I, just seeing how they do. And like every swing is like so intent. Like it's the last swing they ever take all the time.
That's awesome.
And now again, I'm like, all right, how do I get those guys to be like that? Well, one is like they're a little bit older than my guys. But the second thing is like I need a shrink of how many reps they get, because if we all talk about the rep game, we still can give them a lot of reps, but like very little at a time.
Yeah, like 5 sets of 3. You're saying?
Yeah. So I've talked about this a lot. I'm really big with the baseballs on the ground and numbering the baseballs and knowing which baseball. Like like I want the listeners to understand this. Like you have like 7 baseballs. From plate to plate, 1 through 7, 1's inside, 7's outside. You can manipulate whatever. I even color code the baseballs. I do 1 through 3 as blue, and I do the 5, 6, 7. I do those in red. Okay. And we do that all the time. And like we pick, because I think like 2 things are very important. You have to learn how to take in the cage, and you have to learn like when you ball strike, you get out of the cage. And so we do this where, like right now, like today.
You said, sorry. You said when you ball strike, you get out of the cage. So essentially, what you're saying is, just like in the game, you would hit something really hard, and your at bat be over. Is that what you're saying? You would ball strike, and then you'd be done.
Yes. So we get no more than 6 balls. They have to pick their color that they want to hit at that time. So then we understand their approach. We're trying to tune in approach here. Or you're just trying to tune in like really trajectory of ball when they're trying to hit a baseball.
Right.
All right. So they get to learn to take. So they get no more than 6, but they can now only swing the bat only 4 times. However, if they ball strike one, I want them to get out of the cage. And so the big thing that we kind of talk about is like, I think the New York Yankees, the manager was talking about how being a savage in the box and how we're going to just dominate the box and stuff like that. Well, how do you do that? Well, we want to be savages in the box. Like I believe this. I think and this is just my own personal opinion, I could be totally off. If a hitter gets up there and he takes a pitch as the ball is coming in, and he feels like he could crush the baseball if it was a strike, right? That guy can get out of the cage. And if he gets out of the cage, that dude understands his swing. He understands where he should be at launch. He should be at timing. He understands how to hit, and I think those guys are the elite hitters, is the guys that know how to take and know how to swing the bat and understand extension of where power or, where we want to have the force at extension. Those are the guys. Yeah.
Well, like you said, was kind of like the effortless power. Is what you're saying earlier, right? About the effort, like the least amount of, to make it look, I guess you could say like make it look effortless, but putting the most amount of force with the least amount of effort. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
So we do this, like we do this challenge in the cage too. I have a coach over there, and like if he ever feels like it's forced, or if we feel like it's a push or anything like that, and they think they just ball struck it like out of the park, and they're like cage bomb or whatever it is, because they're kids and they're children, and we got to train them to be, in the jungle. Right. And so we like kick him out of the cage, like right then, like you're done. Like if he swings the first one, he crushes it, but he like did all of his force, and it was like, just didn't look easy as he moved through it. Like we kick him out, like right then. We want them to feel that way, because that's what, when you get into the jungle, and when we get to that live pitcher, like today, when we're seeing it, like they start to jump at the baseball. Like they start to work at their eyes. They see a fence. They see everything. They want to hit a ball out. They, whatever it may be, they want to be the king of the castle, especially early. And you have to like, no, dude, just what you did over there, man. what you did over in that cage right there is what I want you to do over here. Nothing changes.
Sure, I love the like just the intentionality of it and like everything, and like you hit on this earlier. That's really your why. Right now your why is that you're preparing them for the jungle, so everything going to mimics that, and so I love that and everything there. I just have to say though, and this is what one of my wonders, because this is, they're not. I guarantee guys before they come in to see you are nowhere near probably ready for that kind of training. Um, and maybe when you first started this, how well was it received? How much did it challenge you to kind of stick with what you were doing? And when you saw maybe because I can just see like when you're trying to say, look, we're getting no more than 6 pitches. Hey, you're out of the cage. You just beefed up on that, or once you struck it really well, get out. Come on, coach. I'm doing. Like how was that transition for you?
That's a good question, because I think that goes back to the communication piece.
Yeah,
we are training them to win. At the end of the day, you're training them to be winners in life. You're training them to be full of character, honoring the game, treating women right. I mean, we can go on and on. And how does that all correlate to your message that you're speaking, even on the baseball field? And I think that all correlates. Like, you're playing the game to win. And so you're playing the game to how the game is delivered to you. You get only 3 to 5 at bats, so we're not going to get any more than that. Like, you have to explain that to a child or to a kid that's coming into your program and tell them why that's important. And I believe this, like, at the end of the day, it comes down to this. Like, I think there's 3 levers in training. I think it's intensity, complexity, and velocity. And so how you train in the jungle is all about, at the very first day, do you think we went full throttle, like gun going, like you got to know everything? Absolutely not. Like, I mean, it's like very low intensity, very slow. The complexity was probably not very hard. It was like, hey, here's a BP fastball, execute a bunt here. Hey, third baseman, like, I want you to catch and throw it over to, I mean, like, as simplistic as you can. Then obviously the velocity. And then as they start to like master that, I think it's about mastery, going back to like the, Karate Kid, or whatever you want to call it, like, be in that black belt. Like, how do you like continuing up from the white belt to the black belt, like from like your physical nature, from your mentality of like what you think about and how you attack it, because this as kids, like, they think about everything else but like winning the game or winning this pitch or like understanding the process. Like, they want to think about everything else. And that takes time, and that takes, a lot of time, and that takes a lot of nurturing through that. And I tell people all this all the time. It takes 3 years to be 3 really good years to understand and grasp what you're trying to do at anything. I think, like, I don't think it just happens like the first year, unless you're just a freak athlete and you kind of understand, and those intensities, complexities, and velocities can like all come together at once. And that's really hard. But I've never really had a freshman or a sophomore like really succeed at the varsity level, especially with the league that we have. Just like in freshmen, like, you don't see like the freshman All-Americans, like, they're very few, that become like in college. It's very hard to see a rookie of the year like hit over 300. It takes time as they go. And so, again, I think it takes 3 good years for them to like completely understand how fast the game needs to be played and how competitive it has to be in, from first pitch to last pitch and, a 7-inning game to win a baseball game.
So did it take you the 3 years as you come to implement the jungle in the zoo? And kind of put these new protocols in place? Did it take you about 3 years to like, look?
Oh man, it's still going. Yeah, it's still going. I mean, I just try to look at it from like how to, get a kid that comes from summer league, from a culture of like, it's not about like, and I have nothing wrong with summer league baseball. I think it is absolutely fantastic because I get to get my guys and they get to go to whatever level they think they are, if they're at the highest level or if it's a mid-range or if it's below, and they can go play baseball and then understand it and learn on on themselves, right? But like that is for themselves. Like they are like literally trying to become recruited. They're trying to create a better skill for themselves, and they're trying to learn the game.
Mm-hmm.
When they're at our level, you're being scouted every day. Like guys are gonna have 40 to 50 at bats when they're pitching it. They're gonna know your weakness. All right. That pitcher is their best pitcher. You're not seeing the 18th best pitcher of this select team. You're seeing their best. And you have to go out and beat him. You know, in these select times, you might only see like you might play 50 games, but you might only see like 4 best pitchers. Well, you're going to see in our league, you're going to see we play 14 games. You're going to see the 14 best.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see the one or two. We play each other twice. And if you don't see if for whatever reason, you're going to see the next best. And so at each school, and so like, how do you defeat those guys? So like it's obviously I believe that like you said, like base running, is that really important? Yes, because that's what wins games. Like when you don't hit and you have a guy on first base, you got to get him to second base because you can't get 3 singles in an inning. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough game. And so is that very important? But like I've kind of like correlated it as like, let's play the game and let's manipulate the game. And let's create the intensity, complexity, and velocity within that game and make it tough on them. And how do they respond? And then from that response, we know if we can go up, down, or, go back to the zoo and figure it out and go back to the drawing board.
No, that's great, man. That's great. I think the response, like you said, depends on like what time of year, what's the feel of the team. Like you said, that's where the great coach comes in and say you can kind of gauge that have a feel for where your guys are at. It's awesome stuff. I think that's a pretty big. Do you feel like because you kind of touched on this with when they go away to play summer ball, and if they're playing on pretty big travel competitive teams, different cultures that get set in. Do you feel like is it every year kind of rehashing? Here's what we do. Just kind of the culture that you have there with within the culture in the zoo and kind of how you're running things.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing is like, I think this is the problem. Like, I think the accountability piece is different. For example, our accountability piece is like, you better go to class, you better do all this stuff. And like, if you get a bad note, like, you're going to get crushed. Right. I mean,
right.
It's not going to be good for you. Right. And, how you respond, is also huge, like negative body language, all those kind of things. Like it's all within that team, and, I've been watching summer league with USA Baseball. I've been watching summer league with, just at my baseball field for the last 20 years. And you see like different teams have different ideologies and different things. You have guys that just sit on a bucket, and then you have guys that are just all investment, coaching, teaching. They get them there an hour and a half before, and they're going through drills. They're making those guys better. They're doing all these kind of things. They're getting them mentally right, and all those kind of things. So like, blending all that and then taking them away and starting from scratch is kind of what I do. Like blanket, like boom, like, hey, you all got better. I'm sure you did. All right. But here's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And here's what we have to do to win a state championship.
Yeah. And it's important, like, and we each have our own cultures. And I know, your culture is one. So like, just think about that. Cause that's what we're really talking about is culture. Is how has your culture, changed, and since you've been at Marcus, where have you started? How has it changed? You've been here, things that you've kind of really held on to and things you've kind of let go.
Yeah. Great question. I think, when I first got there 10 years ago, it was like more of like, we are going to be gritty. We're going to be tough, and we're going to be like all in. And, that was just like, everything we did was like that.
Yeah.
You miss the boat in so many different things when you do that. It's like my JUCO way. Right. And, we are probably really tough to play and we're real gritty, but like I felt like we couldn't get that big hit sometimes or and it evolves, like you look at, and I tell people this all the time, like we have the greatest data, the greatest research lab every single year, and it's right in front of us. It's on a baseball field. Every head baseball coach in high school has that. And like, how do we give that information and then make it better? And it's not that you change your culture, change your mentality, but you like change it to like understand how it all blends together. So I went from I think I went from a transactional coach to a transformational coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like how to blend that all together in my whole ideology of the game, from the jungle to the zoo. Like how does that make sense? Everything has I want to make it as simplistic to them so they understand and how it's supposed to feel and how it's supposed to move and how you're supposed to think for them to react, or whenever they get into that game, that nothing really phases them. And they enjoy and love and respect. And at the end of the game, like if they gave their best, they know that they're never going to get beaten up. We're just going to keep moving forward and getting better.
Transactional to transformational. Absolutely, man. So, oh, that's great. That's great stuff. So, I love that. So, thinking of a transformational, man, thinking in your culture, dude, because you've been around so many, like, I'm sure it's impacted you a lot. You said you've been in USA Baseball, and how has that cultural piece, a transformational piece, impacted you with your even in your experience with USA Baseball, and just how it did you see all of a sudden the regional championship comes, all of a sudden you start what big changes did you see?
Yeah, I just think I always feel I feel like I'm a relational coach. I feel like I'm a guy that's going to get out there and grind with the guys, and we're going to play catch with them, and I'll be in that jungle with them, and I'll compete with them, from the, if I'm playing shortstop or second or hitting, whatever it may be, and have fun with them. And at the same time, I've always felt like I had that piece, but how to blend that all together was where I was missing. I feel like I just missed a piece. And I think, when you start laying out what you want that finished product to look like, and it has nothing to do with winning games, it has to do with winning in life,
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that looks like. If you're going to be a street sweeper, or if you're going to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what ethnicity, what spirituality, doesn't matter what color your skin is. We want to have everybody playing for each other, but playing as hard as they possibly can. But more importantly is loving each other's success. And how do we create that? And how do we do that? And literally everything that we do is awesome. And it came back to me this year. My guys were hey man, coach, just because of COVID stuff, he's like, coach, I think we need to wake up at 5:15 in the morning and lift weights. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I really don't want to get up that early, but yeah. But yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I gotta be that guy. And they're like, yeah, man. So the very first day, the entire team shows up, and we have not missed since. Not one guy, I take it back. We've had guys because of COVID, but I mean, or whatever you call it, tracing or whatever your thing is, because they had been out. But I mean, the guys that were supposed to be there were there, and it was amazing. Of that's what they felt like they needed to do to bond together, to care, to grind, to believe, because they want to be the first ones up in the state of Texas,
mm-hmm.
working before anybody else. Not at 6, not at 6:30, but at 5:15. And so, yeah. And I just thought that was just awesome. It just told you a little bit about kind of who we are and what we want to do, and creating that player, which I still think I was like, oh, we're stopping that when season starts, but we're moving to the afternoon. But
yeah, no, man. Well, just the ownership of it as well. It just got to be pretty.
That's it. I mean, I think you just said it. I mean, ownership, how to create ownership within them.
Yeah.
And I think by questioning them and getting into their heads and them understanding and them problem solving by you guiding those questions is the magic. It's the magic. And if we can get there and understand what movement's supposed to happen, what's supposed to be efficient, where it's supposed to go. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I use it. What's crazy is I use this example all the time. I had a kid come up to me the other day and he goes, "Hey coach, where do these balls go?" And I'm like, and you could call me a jerk or whatever you want to call me, but I'm like, is that a real question, or do you think you know the answer? You're asking that question. Do you need me to tell you where it is, or do you know where it's at? And they're like, "Got it, coach." I'm going over there. And it goes back like the problem solving. Like they need this affirmation all the time, but the game doesn't give you that. If little Johnny on the other side of the fence, mom, and the son is pitching, I'm pretty sure that if that son strikes you out, little Johnny's mom is going to be clapping and basically
Good job.
telling you that you aren't good and ha ha ha. Right?
Yes.
So how do we combat that? How do we combat that, that war, not the war, but like that battle between the two, because it's not going to give you affirmation when you strike out, or if you, whatever, the game's not going to be like, oh, there you go,
Dude, so questioning, you brought this up earlier too, especially with your snow globe analogy, which I love all the analogies, by the way. It just shows you're a great communicator. So, but with all your questioning, especially for people listening that might not be very good at that, how do you grow? How have you grown that skill, of questioning people, not just giving them the answers, but having them think through them to come up with their own solutions?
That's I have started that about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, in between that. And a lot of that's been observation, just observation of just seeing how the brain works. Honestly, I'm going to throw out a big word here, but proprioception. When we change that proprioception, like think about this, like if you have a ball and chain, right? And you have, and it's about to go, and that ball and chain's about to go hit a wall, right? And at the top of that, right? If you change the weight of that ball, it's going to go a different direction no matter how you do it. It might take a little bit more intensity or whatever it is. Well, that's how our brain kind of works sometimes. Like when you change the way it kind of thinks and you tell it to do something without like processing that whole structure, like put your hands here, do that, or wherever it is, without even kind of any kind of movement, it doesn't work, right? And I used to be like, okay, let's just give external cues but I'm like, that's still not the magic. That's still a good cueing system, is definitely an external cue. And the external cue would be like, hey, hit the ball to the back of the net, or hit the ball, break the second baseman's legs, or hit the ball off the center field wall. That's an external cue. But if they can process and eliminate and do an internal cue, that's where the magic is. And they can understand like, that just didn't feel right. Let me put my hands here. Boom. And then they analyze and be like, oh, I just crushed that. That's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. I get out of the cage. That's the magic.
How do you bring that out of them? So like, you're at the cage. Let's say everybody probably sees this coach up here standing on the bucket looking over. Let's say that's you, Coach Sherman.
Yes.
That guy comes out. He has that internal cue. And you say.
So, yeah. So first thing I would say is like, how did that feel? And they'd be like, and they try to describe it to me. And from that description, and most of it is good. I was like, what the heck does good mean, bud?
Right.
And so like, yeah, it felt good. Did you feel stable on the ground? We have to feel stable, people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We felt stable on the ground. Yeah, I felt stable on the ground. Did you feel like you were like connected? Did it feel like your whole body was working together? Oh, yes. Yes. Did you feel balance at contact? Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess, all that kind of stuff. All right. Hey, next time when you do that, let's see if we can repeat that. And I want you to tell me how that felt. Boom. They do it again. Oh, okay. Did you feel like you had the power? And so obviously we're trying to get to the end. This is where the puzzle piece comes in. This is where the snow globe comes in, is like at every single angle, you're going to see something different. And we can be so descriptive, be like, oh, put your hands up. Oh, you leaked your back leg. You did this. Your backside's not moving. We say all this, I say stupid verbiage, but it makes no sense to the human being that's trying to process it. oh, you're working out your front leg, you're slashing at the ball. No. Like, hey, homie, like, let's strike that ball. All right. Tell me how to strike that ball. If I had a PVC pipe that was 10 feet long, all right, and I had to swing it and hit a little ping pong, how do you do that? How do you turn over that barrel? And you make it powerful at contact. And I think of it from that lens. And I create and that goes back to the intensity, complexity, and velocity, even in the zoo, of training it as you go. And like, how hard do you continue to move and understanding what it is? And so it starts with stability. It starts with the questioning of how that felt and where their brain is. Because if we don't know where their brain is and we don't know how they feel, we will never know how to teach them or be efficient at teaching them or creating the consistency of them being efficient. And so those are the I mean, that's a craft. It takes time, but
Oh, sure.
I think the thing is like, at the end of the day is even if you don't know and you don't even know, and still I don't know, because I'm not in this kid's brain, but like, that's how it is. Where is he coming from? What is his ideology on hitting? Like, turn the back knee and stuff like that. Well, let's try to work it all together. And we could talk about hip shoulder separation, how we don't need that, how we need to stay together as we move, as rotational athletes move. We could talk about that all day. But like, anyways, it talks about stabilization. We have to be stable in the ground. Our balance point is at the top of our chest, right in the center at our Adam's apple. That's where, if we aren't stable there, we can't move from the middle. You will not be efficient. Then our spacing of how we move in space, all right, is going to be choppy. It's going to be uphill. It's going to be down. It's going to be inconsistent through the zone. And it all starts with, how easy can I move? All right, to the direction. So that direction would be like to the plate or to the pitcher, right? And then how do we create spacing to move across our axis and create the most efficient way we can? And it all comes back to like, hey, you felt like you're gripping and choking the chicken. Like you're trying to kill a chicken with a bat. Like, hey, let's be a little bit harder. Like, and sometimes I've been as simplistic as this. And this is old school. I'm like, hey, man, you just popped it up 4 times, and just kind of looked at him. He looks right back at me. He's like, yeah. I was like, hey, try to hit the top part of the ball right here. See how that feels.
Right.
And all of a sudden, whack in the back of the head. I was like, hey, how'd that feel? And they're like, oh, that felt good. I was like, what were you thinking about there? It's like, hit the top part of the ball. Hey, let's do that. Hit the top part of the ball for a couple of times. Let's see how that works.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're just like, and then all of a sudden it just like, it's all of that communication, getting in their brain and being like obvious of what's happening.
No, and I like I think that, even because that kind of leads into some individualization too. I think, as you talked about, when you finding the ideology is what you said, but basically kind of seeing what each person has. Does that help you take that into the zoo work for their maybe blending and for their different thing that you're going to try and say, hey, here's what I know you probably think like this, so let's steer you with this piece of PVC, or let's steer you with this med ball, or let's hit it up here. Let's put these screens up here so you hit it up. Like, does that help you individualize your hitters?
Oh, 100%. Let's understand. You said a couple of things there, like blending. Blending is like going from the jungle to the zoo for me.
Yeah.
Blending both. And blending could be like not actually hitting a baseball. It could be a water bag, or it could be a throw with a med ball. It could be a PVC pipe. It could be anything that could be in that zoo of training. It could be hitting off a tee. It could be front toss. It could be pitching machine. It could be anything that could be from like that individualized training. All right. That is blending it to making you the most efficient to the jungle, and then blending it back and going, okay, that wasn't successful. Let's try this. Oh, that was successful. Let's continue to do that until it's not efficient anymore. Right. And then you said something else. You were talking about like, now how do you get the individualization of a coach? This is the toughest thing for a high school baseball coach. You got to remember, I have 70 kids, right. One coach, just me, right? In the off season, because we have this thing called football in Texas, and it runs and it rains here, and we're really, really good. in Texas. And we have a lot of fans that go to it. Even we break COVID rules. I'm totally kidding. But no, I'm totally kidding on that. However, so all my coaches are just basically in football. Like, how do you create the individualization? Like, I came up with this last year of having guys fill out just a Google form every day, and it filters in, and it's something as easy as 10 questions that they go 1 through 5. How did you sleep? How did you feel? And it has all these questions. And within those 10 questions, I can go back and see like, okay, this guy has really been terrible the last 2 weeks. And going back to like how he is. And I tell him, I was like, you can never fail that test. The only way you fail it is if you're not honest. I was like, because then I don't know how to coach you. And then from that, here's 2 things that has happened from me doing that. One is it created this journaling within them. Like, they got to reflect of their day. And they got to think about what wasn't good, what wasn't bad, and be as honest and organic about it. Because they know that can make them better. And then plus, I can look at it and be like, oh, okay, so he's having a rough one. Girlfriend problems, it looks like, or, you know, he's been hanging out with some friends a little bit too much. And you probably have a conversation with him. He ain't sleeping well the last 3 days, you know, whatever it may be, or has a tough test, however it is. And you look at the performance level on the field and you blend that with that, you find that individualization in the fielding, in the defense, in the hitting. And then at the same time, they continue to grow as you go, that they're imperfect people. And so they're more vulnerable. And so when you create this kid that's more vulnerable and they want to compete and they want to win, it becomes like they're going to do whatever it takes, you know, sacrifice if they need a bunt because they know it's going to win.
Oh, yeah. So your 10-question simple Google form. Is this something you do like after practice? So then it's kind of
every day
send
they
out
do
to the group chat.
And if they don't, no, it just, I put a Google Doc and I put it. Yeah. I mean, I told them to save it to their phone.
Okay.
You know, and they just go in. They have to put their name. The very first thing is their name, and then they answer these 10 questions. And you know, there might be 12 on there. I can't remember. I got to go back and look at like all the things I have. And I think it changes from pitcher to hitter too. I think there's 12 on hitters, and I think there's like 8 on pitchers. Because, you know, as a PO, like there's days where you don't, you know, I mean, you're just doing, you know, plyo work or, you know, or you're grabbing sand and putting it on the field. You know, it depends on what day it is.
Right. So. That's one thing I was just wanting to. I don't know if you want to dive into it or not, you know, but it's thinking about the pitcher's jungle. You know, how different that is, because it's just a unique thing, because, you know, you can't go 100-mile-an-hour in your arm and things like that. But I'm sure I just like to hear maybe a couple ways that you try to help blend that jungle and zoo when it comes to like on the mound as well, when you have to just watch how much a guy has to throw, you know.
Now, I am going to say this, like, we have some good pitchers in our program. We've had an A&M, we've had a West Virginia, and we've had a couple other ones like Air Force Academy and stuff like that. But in our league, like, we are probably at the lower end of like the Division I. We're more of a JUCO type kid, or they're, you know, a really good D2 school. And I've had a D2 kid win 12 games for us. And I'm telling you, it's because of this, because they know how to hold runners. They know how to pick runners off, and they're not afraid to back pick with a guy on first and second, back pick to first. They can field any bunt because we go through the zoo so much, or go through the jungle so much. They understand that, like, oh, you bunting on me? That's an out. See you, homie. You know, thank you. All right, you can talk all the trash you want to in that dugout, but like, you just gave me an out, bud. I appreciate it. Here we go. This guy's done, you know? And I think training that is understanding to do everything else but throw a baseball is basically what we do in that jungle mentality. When we get them in and they have to, now when they're pitching, like right now, like today, they had to go first and second, no outs, and you had to get out of it. No outs. And then like hitters had to do their thing, right? They're calling signs. We got signs. We got a whole sign system. They got to go in through every single pitch. We got to go fast. It's not fast, but we're speeding them up, and they have to throw that pitch. Okay. ball 4. Now you got base loaded, no outs. Now how you can get out of it? Right. And so again, you teach them like, it's not an easy bullpen day, right? Because that's what we do. We do bullpen. No, that 20 pitches became very effective. And then we get to go back and learn from it, And so now the next time is probably going to be a bullpen session. Actually, what we did today is they only got 20 pitches. They went 20 pitches in the bullpen. It's exactly. So we have 40 pitches today for our guys over there. 20 pitches there, 20 pitches in the bullpen. And so our pitching coach went out to the bullpen and said, all right, hey, your curveball you're spiking it. Let's work. And so again, it was like affirmation, and problem solving, then.
It almost gave them a purpose for the bullpen, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
It gave them a purpose for the bullpen, whether that might be, let's just finish up what you just rolled through them, or let's work on that. That 2-0 breaking ball or whatever.
Yeah. And then it kind of talked about how important each pitch is.
Yeah.
And how to attack. You're in a bad situation. This isn't good. But the more and more you do that, and the more and more you raise it, it's, and they understand when we call pick from dugout, or if we call whatever it is, that they understand that, hey, I'm trying to slow you down. I'm trying to slow this batter down. I'm trying to get him to think. So does that make sense?
Yes.
100%. Yeah. So I think that's the same way. So the questioning from a hitting side is the exact same questioning we do on the pitching side. Those are the two most important things that I think coaches forget, is we want to do bunt defense. We want to do all this kind of stuff. Dude, 98% is between the pitcher, catcher, and the hitter. All the other stuff is yes, you have to dominate. I get it. But if you aren't efficient at those two things, boy, you're going to have a trouble winning. And so analyzing, problem solving through those two things need to be majority of your conversation. Not that your second baseman didn't come across the bag on a double play ball, which that would be simple conversation of hey, next time, let's do this. Right? Because then he can make that awareness call. Hey, communication, hey, y'all two called it and y'all didn't. Remember our communication stuff? Yeah, that's just a simple conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the questioning needs to be happening from the pitcher and catcher, and hitter, because that's where all the mindful training needs to be coming from. Not to be off on that, but that's the way I think, especially in high school.
Well, I mean, I think you hear so many guys too. I'll talk about, as a player, you're training them to be their best coach, and I think essentially that's essentially what you're trying to do as you question them to get them to think about, to help them, like you said, how did you feel? So that way you can kind of replicate it. So yes, they need to become their best coach, because the highest form of coaching is really not being needed, like the thing of parenting. We're hoping we raise our kids well enough that they're not going to need us when they're, after they get out of the house. So, no, man, I think it's very valuable. And I think, I don't know, honestly, have you ever thought of, for me, I think of this as how could it could be overwhelming, you can tell you have a very big knowledge of hitting. You can tell you have a very big knowledge of the game. Where does someone start? Do they just need to learn more? Do they just need to learn more to be able to question more?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Because here's the thing is, you got to remember, I have 2 sons, and I've never talked to them about baseball. Not once. We throw in the background. Hey, throw it harder, whatever it is. They have a coach, and the coach looks at me every time, and I'm like, hey, man, just love them. Just literally love them. And then when they fail, ask them what they could have done better in that situation. And then the right answer. I don't need to tell you that, hey, he threw it home, he should have thrown it to first, or whatever it is, if it's in practice or whatever. I don't need to be that guy. I was I want you to coach them, and I want you to just have fun and love them. And you're by that, just that value, they're going to look up to you. If you talk to my guys through their training, their T-ball coach or their youth league coach means so much to them. If I give them 3 guys, 100% it's going to be that T-ball and youth league guy. And then maybe it'd be a high school coach, or it might be a, summer league high school coach, whatever it is. They've been the most impactful for them. Or it could be a swing coach or a throw coach, whatever it is. But like, I think for a young coach that might be looking at this, or if anybody's just kind of just thinking about, like, if you're a rec coach, or if you're a high school coach that has not very many things, and you don't even have a baseball field, or if you're in inner city and you don't have very many good baseball players, like, man, like, try to put them in situations where, that they can succeed at. If you don't have film, or if you don't have those things that I have, and like literally let them play. And if they play more, it will, like, literally they'll get better under your scope of stopping and starting again. I just think sometimes we put so much we make it so complex.
Yeah.
We blow their brains up and they're already stressed, and the least that we can make it as easy as possible and then get in their brains, boy, I just see it. Like, I see that's where the fruit is. And that's what I missed at the very beginning. I really did.
No, and honestly, I see it another, and I enjoy, coaching, watching other sports and looking at other sports, and I think other sports, why you see them, scrimmage a lot. I knew even like the USA Soccer, like their motto is play, practice, play. It's play, practice, play. Where we play, we're gonna we just blow the whistle, like, and it's just like, oh, remember this? We have to do here, be here. All right, game on. Let's do it again. I just feel like, like our game, because of there is no stopwatch, there is no time limit, where it just, but yeah, where you've been able to find out, here's how we're just going to play, and we're going to play, and we're going to teach through the playing, it is definitely very valuable.
And you make it authentic. Like, I think like it makes it move easy. Where, like, think of like guys off islands, they have their why, right? They have their understanding, but they don't have shoes. They have a stick, and they have to hit a rock, right?
Yeah.
Learn how to turn the thing. They learn how to move efficiently. And like, if we can create that instead of like, oh, that's a bad rep. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And none of that plays. Like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hit 14 ground balls at you, 14 backhands, 14 forehands. Like, yes, those are reps. Those are pretty good if he's struggling at that. But if we're just doing that just to do it, like, are we making ourselves better to win? And I think those are the only things that I would come back and I would ask and to your point, let me back up and like go to your point that you said about soccer play. Like, think of wrestling. That's what they do at the very beginning. They go and they wrestle. Oh, well, you need to get underneath it more. Let's start there. Boom. They go in there and they get underneath it. And then, all right, how do you get out of that hole? Boom. Okay, you do this, this, and this. All right, let's go back. All right. And then at the very end, what do they do when they're tired? They wrestle again, because it's the third round, right? And like, how do you get points in the third round? So like, everything is evolve of play. It's crazy. Like, in their sport, just like it needs to be. It needs to be fun.
It is fun. It is. And I think, but it, it's the planning of it that you can tell that you have to do, especially when you start to bring in pitchers and what the pitchers are doing that day, and then, it just takes, and then also probably nothing. Well, I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that this wasn't the same kind of style that you were brought up on.
No, I wasn't. When I got to junior college, though, holy cow. That was like an 8-hour practice a day. And then we played 40-inning games when we went to,
double headers all weekend.
Oh, gosh. It was like every day. It was like, oh, hey, we're playing. I feel like I played 100 games in a 3-month period. Yeah, that was the funnest time of my life. But so, how do I create the competitive kid? How do I create our players to be loving each other, which is so hard in our culture because we're in this bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to get into that bubble because then we get into his feelings, so.
Oh, sure, man. This has been awesome. This has been great. I guess, like, for me, like, I guess another thing that's stepping out as you get to see is you talked about the mentality. You talked about, and I think all of this is creating definitely Marcus. This is the Marcus baseball player. Like you're definitely creating that identity, and helping with their mentality. Do you find yourself getting into much of the mental part of things, and especially when it comes to ball striking? I mean, like looking for certain pitches has to really start. That's part of it. You want to say mental as well. What kind of, I guess, part of the mental side of the thing are you bringing into your guys as you looking in when you're part of that zoo, part of that jungle?
And I think it goes back to that question. What were your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to learn how to compartmentalize our thoughts. Like they haven't grown yet. And sometimes as high school coaches or youth coaches, like we want them to be perfect. And we create this perfect, but we have to make it like, okay, they're a kid. We got to get in their brain. Like, what were you thinking? And how, was that real or was that fake? The best question I've ever asked my players is this one. When you get 1-0 or 0-1, does your thought change? And they're all like, yeah, when I'm in a positive count, yeah, I feel like I can crush a baseball. When I'm in a negative count, they think of a negative. And you're talking about like great players here. You're not talking about like these kids that just first started playing. You're talking about guys that have played at these high levels, been at some pretty cool events and been publicized throughout the country. Like they're saying, yeah, I become defensive, and I'm sitting there going like, boom, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 strikes, why? Yeah, if you strike out, I kill you. But yeah, why? No, I'm kidding. But no, yeah. but to the point is like that's what's going through their head. That's a false thought. That is fake news. However you want to call it, like that is not real. Like get that out of your brain. Like filter that somewhere else. And try to get these things and stuff like that. And what I have found is the team that is the most vulnerable. When I say vulnerable, like they're not afraid to talk about their, bad baggage, whatever you want to call it, and express their real thought, I feel like are my best teams. Like they can really express their thought of what they're trying to communicate. So going back to your mental question is literally like finding that moment. And you can always tell by body language. I don't do like this, like, hey, we're going to breathe like Sheets does, which I think is awesome. And all that kind of stuff. It's just, that's something that's not for me. I think put them out in the competitive thing, see what they don't do, then go back in and then love them up. And how do we create like them to be, we call them dragons, like when they go out there, or stallions or whatever it is.
Oh, I get it. Whew. Sorry, I just sneezed. So yeah, so even man, wow. So do you find yourself being, because I can imagine, especially, right now you're doing it all by yourself, to be able to individualize that for every single person, or do you like try to bucket them or group them together with guys? Certain guys are going to be with certain guys when it comes to the zoo.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Like I'm just thinking of like, like you said, you got a ton of guys right now by yourself because other coaches have other priorities. But when you go to the zoo, right, and you say, okay, I know what your deficiencies are. We're going to work on them. Do you try to bucket all those guys, or each of those guys really just kind of doing their own things, or you try to group them based on what they're doing?
Yeah, that's this is where it gets complex a little bit, but yes. So I group them, but they know their field already. So when they come to the ballpark, they already know what they need to work on and how they need to work on it. So when they warm up, like if you come watch us and you see them warm up, you're gonna see 10 different warm ups going on, and you'll be like, "What the heck's going on?" This is like controlled chaos. In fact, we had like 20 coaches at our practice the other day, and they wanted to come see because we had the Texas High School Coaches Convention at the Gaylord, and they came in, and I'm like, "All right, guys, here we go, ready, break, boom," and they go. He's like, "Dude, they went, and there was like ants everywhere." It's like, poof. And all of a sudden they're like, you see some guy over there, he's doing like handstands up against the fence. You see guys doing bear crawls, see guys doing sprints, karaoke. You see a guy with his shoes off, see a guy doing cartwheels. It's madness, right? And it goes back to like these things is like we try to create like what makes you warm up. Here's what it's supposed to feel like, and here's what you need to do. Now you have to guide them a little bit, and it takes time to guide that. But again, if you see us throw, like I don't have a throwing program. My throwing program is how do you feel efficiently? Now we have heavy days, we have easy days, and we have medium days. And then we have, again, easy days in there. Like today's a heavy day. Like we're going to do 10 jump throws at the end, but then we're going to let it loose for 5-10 minutes, at the farthest that you need to. It doesn't have to be at 120 feet. If I have a 100-pounder that is 5'4", like I'm not going to have him throw 300 feet throwing pull downs. Like that's stupid. Like go to where you think you can be and get with a partner that is. I got guys that are injured. I got guys that are coming back from injuries. I got guys that are that like can throw it 300 feet and throw pull downs that throw it 95, but they get on the mound and it's like 81. And so like we're trying to find that breakdown, right? And so again, you see us looks like chaos. And all of a sudden they come together and then they go and then boom, jungle. Here we go. On. We're clicking it. It's fast. It's going. It's efficient. So yeah. So going back to your question is like, how does it all look? That was kind of a complex question. So I don't like literally like go, hey, you look like him. He knows what his feels are because we've been over those multiple times in multiple situations. And that even changes sometimes. And we have a scope of like, hey, here are the feels that I want you to feel every day before you do your before you go to the field and you swing a bat or if you throw a baseball. And so within that, they already know. And then once they get into hitting groups, that's where I do lump. Kind of lump them in together and be like, okay, because it goes back to those things I said before, the intensity, the complexity, and the velocity, these guys usually struggle with.
Yeah.
Curveballs, too fast, too quick. And like, so then when they go to the cage, whatever it may be, we can kind of put those guys together so they can keep each other accountable on those things.
Yeah. Solid. Super solid, man. Really good, man. So Sherman, I know I know it's great. We got some practice planning, got the culture, got the pitching stuff, man. Is there anything that you feel like we haven't given enough time, or is there something else that you'd like to get into?
Yeah, I mean, like, man, I just think the thing is like coach hard, love your guys, and like think of things for your program. This is what all I've done is I've thought of like what does it take to win, and then back everything up from there.
Start with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind.
100%. You have to be successful. And the other thing is like, here's a quick nugget is like have a recorder in practice. Don't note take. It takes too much time. Have a recorder in your hand and then every day go back and listen to it. Like put your thoughts in there. Hey, Johnny didn't hit real well. Johnny didn't do this. Johnny didn't do that. Hey, he's not swinging efficient. He's always late. Because you always forget those. And then you go back and you analyze that is huge in creating the player. Because then the next day, you just like send them a note or vice versa. You make sure you bring that up the next day and as you write it down and type it out. I think that as a coach is very big. I don't care what age you are. If you're teaching 3-year-olds all the way up to pro baseball, I think just having a note taker of some type of what you did bad, what you did good, so you can explain both. And so that they can put that puzzle piece together of what it's supposed to look like.
Great. That's a great analogy, especially because life happens too when you get done. We've got families and how things happen. So it's great to then come back to that at the end of the night as well. So, Sherman, this is awesome, man. Really, really appreciate it, buddy.
You, I mean, you've had some heroes on here, and I just feel fortunate enough to be a part. So
yeah, I've been fortunate. Nah, you're right there with them all, man. I really appreciate it, buddy, man. If there's anybody like, if what's the best way to make contact you? If anyone want to talk more about the jungle, more about the zoo, and anything in between, man, because you do some tremendous things in your program.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the best way is like you can follow me on Twitter. I guess that's Jeff Sherman 26. And and you DM me whatever you want to do. I'm on Facebook. I just got on, so I have no idea how it works. So you can
Nice.
message me on Messenger, I guess.
Okay.
And I'll try to figure that out. And then obviously email me, Sherman J, SHERMAN, the letter J, at LISD.net.
Coach Jeff Sherman from Marcus High School in Texas. Just giving some incredible information. Can't thank him enough for making a part of the show and giving his time to help benefit and grow the game. That's what he's about. And it's just really great just really privileged to be able to think, 45 episodes ago, didn't know Jeff. But really fortunate, to be able to now, through this process and just how it came about, and to be able to have him bring his knowledge, bring his analogies, bring the way he communicates. I think just even that skill alone could be very beneficial for someone to be able to grow, communicate with players, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. At the end of the day, it's about them being able to tell us what do they feel, what do they do, and how we can communicate these ideas to our players. And Jeff just brings a great style to that. Brings a great wealth of knowledge, but it's not he can get complex if you want to get complex, but you can tell he's a teacher. You can tell it's about transfer, and it's about them learning and applying what they're doing. And at the end of the day, like he says, is winning, being able to win the game, giving your chance the best chance to win the game, to perform well in the jungle. And that communication piece is really big for him, and you can tell it's working out well. Very successful at Marcus, very successful. Like I said, USA Baseball, helping those guys out, and it's an incredible teacher. So again, Sherm, can't thank you enough. And for those people who did not catch it there at the end, feel free to reach out to him, shoot him an email at shermanj@lisd.net. Again, if there's any feedback you can give me about the episode, you can reach out to me, treytcobb@gmail. Reach out to us on Twitter, and just keep spreading the good news. And until next week, keep getting better.